there are many theories or plans where people think humanity can go into space, and especially with regard to Mars. So the current plan, some plans are to make like a base on the moon and then have a nice stepping stone from there to Mars. And then if you are there on Mars and you build a base there, and it's like the most, probably the easiest of the planets to build a colony there outside of Earth, and from there you can spread off to other places. You can then make bases in some kind of moons or other planets and expand or build space stations. From Mars, yeah, they have the big benefit on Mars that the gravity is very low, so everything that you build on Mars you can shoot up into space very, not very, maybe not very easy, but a lot easier than from Earth. And on Mars, yeah, you don't really have the dangers of Mars. Is it's a little bit colder, and the atmosphere is thinner, which also means that the cold is not affecting you that much. So you can think about that if you have 15 degrees outside temperature and you can walk around with a sweater, it's not that bad. But if you have 15-degree temperature in a swimming pool or in a shower, that's something completely different. Even in a shower is already different to going into a bath, because the density of the liquid around you is way higher. So the temperature, the flow of temperature from you to the medium is way higher. It sucks out the energy faster. So if the atmosphere is just 1% of what we have outside, then it doesn't really feel that much colder. So on Mars, when you have the temperature there being minus 40 degree, that can mean for you that your body has to heat up just a little bit of air with minus 40 degree temperature, but your body, being well fed and you just did some exercise, actually produces more heat than there is capacity of this little bit of air around you, so you might actually get warm, or at least not feel too cold. So for most of the thing you have to just wear something according to winter clothes maybe. And maybe something interesting for the colonists to experience, and that needs experience to handle, also with the different seasons. And then you go into a shadow, then you have the difference with sunlight and everything. Yeah, it's very hard to put it all together. So what's more of a problem, of course, because of the the thin atmosphere, is that you have the human is not really accustomed to that, to the slow atmosphere. So you would have, if you run around without gear, you would have I don't know if you would really die so much, but yeah, you would just blow up, explode, but you would have very high pressure. You would have burst vessels everywhere. It would be very uncomfortable. What you need is something that keeps the pressure on your body. So you might need to have some kind of very clothes that press together the body, so that the inside pressure is according to Earth. So right now we have the inside pressure is according to the outside pressure, and if you jump into a pool or if you go on the mountain, then your inside pressure difference rises or sinks, and that is then not good with regards to all the gases that are bound in your blood and everything. But yeah, it would be interesting to see how humans adapt to that. Definitely not impossible. Then you have on Mars, what would be more interesting as a problem is with all the dust. So you have all this dust which is dry. You can think also that with the temperature differences, you have the stone being broken down like it is, for example, in the desert. You have it gets warm, then it gets super cold, and then the dust gets made small. Then you have a little bit wind, you might have a little bit wind, so you have dust accumulating and grinding down more and more. Now what you have on the moon, you have the problem that you don't actually have wind, right? There's not an atmosphere, at least not to actually to speak of, and that's lead to all the stones being completely rough, so they are not grinded down. If you have, for example, a look at sand and the beach, then you see that they are all like very round because they're just grinding constantly on each other. And on the moon it's completely different, complete other way. So they're just breaking off, and then you have just splinters, and they're all sharp and everything. So that will be a very interesting challenge. Also, if it is like this also on Mars, because there's a little bit wind, and maybe then it's a little bit less important, less dangerous. So it could be that this is maybe not so much of a problem. Then there are toxic materials apparently in the Mars dust that are not really healthy. But since you won't run around without gear anyway, that will not be that much of a problem. You really have to take care with the cleanup when you come back from the outside of Mars into the Mars capsule. That might be something important. So this is why they have like thoughts where you have your Mars gear, your suit, your space suit for Mars suit. Space suit is for space, Mars suit is for Mars. So basically they have a hatch in the back that can attach to the space station. So you don't need to go into the space station. You just attach with it with your back, attach to the wall, and then you can climb out into the space station. And ideally you never really have to go through this atmosphere difference, which is a very smart system. So then on top you have also the radiation. So the atmosphere is not so thick, which means it cannot block so much of the radiation, but most importantly the electromagnetic field of Mars is insignificant, so which is also estimated as one of the reasons that the atmosphere is so thin, and both leads to very vulnerability towards radiation coming from the sun and space. So the exposure there has to be minimal, and that's why you have to dig in your habitat and protect it against that. Then you will have, so that are like most of the environmental dangers. Then we come to maybe the psychological danger or physiological is like, how do you get food there? You can't eat vegetables there all the time, or just fish, and that will be very, very monoculture. Also, when you grow vegetables, then you have to care about oxygen and carbon dioxide production. So when those plants grow, they produce a lot of oxygen. I think remember reading something, so like for the Amazon it doesn't really produce that much oxygen because it's a closed cycle of the trees producing oxygen by growing, and a lot of trees that are dead, and you have like from this rain and everything, the soil layer is all decomposing, producing oxygen. So at the net it's not producing that much oxygen, and the most of the oxygen is produced, for example, in the fields of North America, for example, where they grow corn or wheat, and when the corn grows and goes up, you have a very, very strong growth of those plants, and in that time they produce a lot of oxygen and because they use up all this CO2 to put it into material, into fiber and everything, and the nutrients. So when they grow, they suck up all the CO2, and obviously because they're plants, and they also expirate, so to say, oxygen. So that's where they produce a lot of oxygen, and where most of that, or a lot of that, comes from. So when you have a colony, and then you have to have that, and on top of that it needs sunlight, that means you can't really shield it, and then how do the plants cope with radiation? And yeah, that will be something very interesting to see how they come up with that. Definitely something to think about. So maybe you have some very robust plants that can be eaten by pigs, something like that, or cows, and then you can eat the pigs and cows maybe, and maybe you have more fishes or chickens, or maybe in the next years they find out how to make food out of thin air, of CO2, and have a way to synthesize all those nutrients that are needed for humans. It would be so easy if humans just need some energy and can just recycle all the proteins perfectly. It would make it a little bit easier. But yeah, that comes in another topic. So what I would imagine is, okay, you have like the people flying there, and you have more and more colonists building there. First they will probably just dig some holes and put like those tubes in there, and then live in the tubes while they are going out for missions to build more stuff, to care about more energy production. Speak of energy production, also very important, you will need to rely on nuclear. On one video I saw, he was saying that that the nuclear fuel had to be brought in, but actually there is a lot of thorium on Mars, which is better than uranium, and with a liquid fluid thorium reactor you just need uranium to start the cycle, and after that it just continues running as long as you refuel it with thorium, and you can have a very efficient and fail-safe process which also generates heat and energy, and that fail-safe over years and years to come. So when you have that, wind energy completely falls flat. You have like next to no air, so an air has to be ridiculously small, and then it doesn't really work all day around. It would be a suicide. Then solar, since Mars is so far away from it's not so far away, but it's further away from the sun, you get only a quarter or so, or half of the energy from the sun, and that also only half the day, so you have to have already 4 times as many solar arrays, and then you have to use the solar also to heat. That's just total bull crap. You can forget that. Solar is good like for everything Earth orbit in space, and for everything then closer to the sun. That's where it's good. Or for maybe an Earth even on island solutions. If you have your little island and you want to have some electricity there, then you get solar. But other than that, you can produce it centrally with nuclear reactors. Way better, cheaper, safer, with also byproduct of heat and some very important elements that are produced during the cycles that you can use for medicine, that are very important for radio, for nuclear medicine, so for testing for cancer or treating cancer and everything like that. And it's just, just build those things. So you have the energy, food, and then you can go, okay, you have to know your base with the nuclear reactors, you found out how to feed the people, you have like a nice place to stay that isn't too cramped and smelly. It's like, okay, our place away from home at least is not so grumpy. You can live there, you have also enough people so that it doesn't get too boring, that you are not getting fed up by them, and also society on Mars is not going towards riots or people pissing each other off. So that all given. What are you doing then? Are you going to terraform Mars? Because terraforming is something I would expect to be more violent and also very, very long term. So I mean, if Elon Musk speaks about nuking the poles, that's a solution. Even if you use nuclear bombs, and then you would need to have like millions of them to melt enough ice on the poles. It needs to be like nuking of Mars in industrial scale. And even then it would take years and years for things to settle. So the chances are, if you go to Mars and then you have to probably like leave the colony again because there will be too much turmoil and radioactivity from the bombs and what who knows. So what I was wondering, if it's not possible to engineer humans to live on Mars, or rather to live on space. So maybe there's a way that you can build some spacesuits that you can use like a second skin, that are super comfortable and that you don't even have to lay off. Then you have some kind of machines or something that either work as respirator or that work as some kind of re-energizing. So basically, if you look at the human, you need to get energy in. It's like for carbohydrates or fat to get this ATP production going. And what you need is oxygen, and what you need is those essential protein and fats to repair everything. So if you now could use, I don't know, some box that you attach to your blood cycle, that's just it's basically black box thinking. So you have a magical box that you can attach to you, and then it does all that. Then you wouldn't need it, and you maybe have, I don't know, an energy supply that lasts for 50 years without interruption, and in between you can always recharge or something. Then you wouldn't need to terraform Mars, you wouldn't need to even build big habitats in space. You wouldn't need gas bubbles somewhere, and you can focus completely on building other technical devices, big telescopes, nice space stations. It's a lot you can skip, but that will probably take a long time to get to that. What I definitely would like to see on Mars is, so you have like these tubes where they live in, or like maybe the glass domes. But what I always have to think about it, when people live on Mars, then they should basically have a habitat there that lets them this is actually better than Earth. So how do you want to get to the optimum, right? I mean, you don't want to just stay there. You want to build something that lets you say, God damn it, it's even better than Earth here. So, and if you use the advantages of Mars, which is first, you don't have anything that you can pollute, so you can build factories like everything, but also that means that also you have all this free real estate. You have so much space there that you can build huge structures, and also it means with a low gravity you can basically look at buildings on Earth and you can build them 3 times as big on Mars. And like what I would like to see is some kind of buildings that are similar to like Gothic churches, because those Gothic churches, when the people built them, that's what I read, is they built them according to things of nature, with fractals and proportions and scales. So you have everything scaled up and down, and you have fractals which go smaller and bigger. And this is somehow, like in the human brain, is remembering it's similar to nature. It reflects this fractal element of nature, where you have, for example, for trees going into branches and then into smaller branches, and the leaves having this form and function, and bushes and everything. And this is something that feels like home, basically. And if that would be incorporated in a building on Mars, and then not only you have a building that has those elements which are maybe not that much functional as a technical way, but as a physiological way, and that is, you have this beauty, and if you think about, you have some very good designers that go there and they really put in a lot of work in a building with all those details, and then you have the building also being of huge size. So if you think about, you want to build a base on Mars, maybe you want to not build the base small, because if there's trouble or so, then the gas is out very fast, for example, if there's some damage, but you want to build it very huge. So if something happens, it takes a long time to evacuate everything, and you want to have multiple of those. And also, since the atmosphere is very low and you have so many people living in one space, it could be actually that the heat that you generate is very high, and you want to save as much as it and not put it into the environment. So you need a lot of volume to save that, and then you want to have a big building. So yeah, what I think about is like build something like a cathedral that is 3 times as big as a normal cathedral on Earth, maybe even bigger. You could probably build it like 4 times as big, with huge inside open spaces. So if you are inside, you are at awe at what humans done here, and you just feel awesome to be on Mars. And when you go into your missions and you come back, then you're always happy that you're here, and you don't miss Earth so much. You go to Earth and like, oh, it's also nice here, okay, I can walk under the open sun. But Mars has its benefits too, and I think it would be very important to not only think about what is all going wrong with Mars, or what's dangerous there, what obstacles there are, but also a lot at the benefits of Mars, and how it can be used to advance humanity and expand and build some other very beautiful and useful things.